Hello and welcome to the I Can Do podcast with Benjamin Lee. We're here to talk about tips and strategies to have an I Can Do mindset. Life is what you put into it. Get the most you can. Here's your host, Benjamin Lee.
Good day. It is a new podcast, new episode, day 9 of my Ultraspeaking Project, day 9 of 300 Impromptu podcast using the timer app through the Ultraspeaking app. So every new episode, I get a new subject. I don't know what that subject is going to be, but how do we handle pressure? How do we handle uncertainty? Well, all of this comes into place as we have to speak on the fly, impromptu speaking as well. So here we go, and let's see what today's subject is. Today's episode is called The Surprising Thing I Learned About My Parent. This is always an interesting subject because when it comes to public speaking, even with a podcast, how much information does a person really want to share? So that's something that I have to, I guess, kind of navigate as I think about something surprising that I learned about my parent. I have already talked about my dad in one of the previous episodes, the last time that I yelled, and I talked a little bit about just some of my background with my father as well. In fact, I've been pretty outspoken about my dad, just with the dynamics that we had in our relationship and just how that has affected me. You can go back and listen to sermons. There was one of my earliest podcasts, I believe, back in 2019, Dads, Are We in the Picture? I talked a lot about my father and how my father was not in the picture as well. I think I'll continue to go down this thread. One of the surprising things that I learned about my parent, in particular with my dad, and I guess this was years ago, was just his family dynamics. Family is always interesting because there are some things that we don't always want to share, even within a family. But as you learn these things and as you talk more with your mom, with your dad throughout the years, even with your siblings, you just learn a lot of different things. I can remember, and I'm not going to go into all the details, one of the things my sister shared with me concerning my dad, something that had happened, and I never knew it. So sometimes when you learn things about your parents, things that you just would never expect, it can be a little bit jarring or shocking as well. I would say one of the biggest things, though, that I learned about my father, which actually I think helped me to have even more compassion towards him and understand some of the challenges that he had in his life, was just the way that he was raised. Growing up, he had a lot of challenges and he saw a lot of things that no children really should be able to see or should see. And I think during his time growing up, therapy and talking things through were not always something big. And when there's already a broken home, that adds another layer to some of the challenges as well. So the fact that I learned that my dad, he grew up in a broken home. He did not have a mom and a father in the traditional sense that were always there. There were other challenges that he faced as well. And I don't think he really was able to navigate a lot of those issues, at least as a child. So as he got older, that became even more challenging for him to navigate with respect to different emotions and how to handle emotions and whether or not he was going to use a substance to even feel certain emotions. So he got into social drinking about 7 years into my mom and dad's marriage. And the social drinking really led to even bigger issues. One of the things that I also learned about my dad that I think has helped me was that he had a hard time expressing emotions, even crying when something was sad, or trying to suppress those emotions. And so when he did drink alcohol, that made it a little bit easier for him to show and to share. Well, that's a hard thing to really go through, because emotions are a part of our lives. I believe we are created in the image of God. Um, and, there's tears, there's joy, there's happiness, there's frustration, there's anger. The Bible even talks about anger: be angry and yet do not sin. There's grief, there's sorrow, there's so many different emotions that all of us can have. So, not tapping into those emotions, and a lot of people live like this even now, where they simply don't want to feel certain emotions or feel a certain way. Well, that's going to have I believe, a negative impact in the years and decades to come. I saw that with my father. So as I looked and learned about some of these things concerning him, one of my mottos has been, I think I got this from a preacher, Brother Pounds, years and years ago: replicate or repudiate. It wasn't from him, it was from some book. Replicate or repudiate. And by that, replicate things that are good that we have seen in our parents, repudiate or reject things that are negative or bad that we've seen from our parents as well. That has served me well, because as I have learned things about my father with drinking, for example, so I haven't had any alcohol probably in at least 26 years, maybe 25 years. I can't remember exactly how old I was when I stopped, 20 or 21. I started drinking alcohol when I was in college. That was primarily to um, hook up with girls, go to the parties, the after hour parties, handling stress from finals and things like that. Certainly, it was not the right thing to do. Um, and thankfully, I came to my senses. And as I learned more even about what the scriptures teach about drunkenness and being sober minded, well, alcohol is not going to allow me to be sober minded by any stretch of the imagination. But also looking at my father, that played a huge impact upon, wait a second, I do not want to go down this path that he's gone. And there were some embarrassing moments for me in college. I actually have a book, What to Do When You Go to College: Live and Learn, or Learn and Live, that you can get off of Amazon. A brutal analysis of all of my mistakes in college, because I made a lot of mistakes in college. Sinful mistakes, not just regular mistakes. Some were regular mistakes, but also sinful mistakes. But I'm thankful that I was able to know and learn certain elements of things that happened in my father's life, because that allowed me to go down different paths. So, this subject of the surprising thing I learned about my parent, I think all of us at some point are going to learn something surprising, shocking, sad, whatever the case may be. Maybe the bigger lesson to take away from this discussion today: what do we do when we learn about that information? Will we hold it over our parents' head their entire lives? Will we refuse to give any forgiveness or show any mercy? Will we do the same thing and hide certain elements from our children, where some things they may not be able to handle, but some lessons and mistakes that we have done can actually benefit our children if we can help them to see, don't go down this path. So there is a decision we have to make about, when we do learn these surprising things, how are we going to respond? The Bible says all have sinned and come short of the glory of God, those who are of the age of accountability, in Romans 3 and verse 23. So while we can learn and be surprised about our parents, there's a lot of things I'm sure people will be surprised about us. So let's choose to do the right thing and to respond the proper way. All right, that's today's podcast. Those personal discussions and personal prompts can be a little bit challenging. I'm breathing kind of heavily here on purpose. And hopefully this will help someone who is listening to this episode today. All right. I'll see you tomorrow. Tomorrow is day number 10. Tomorrow will be episode number 300 with the I Can Do podcast. That's pretty awesome. Thank you so much. Take care. God bless.